2008 Jetta MKV MK5 front wheel bearing replacement. You're going to start by taking the axle bolt loose. You're either going to have a 12-point 24 millimeter, or you're going to have a 6-point 27 millimeter. One of the two will be present. You're going to want to break this bolt loose. I actually had to use a 3/4 inch breaker bar socket. You want to have something that's not really going to give much. I broke a 25-inch half-inch breaker bar first. This is my second time putting a wheel bearing in this one. First time I decided to put a wheel bearing in from Amazon, a little cheap wheel bearing, and it just didn't hold up. So now I've got a Volkswagen wheel bearing, and we're gonna tackle it again here. After the axle bolt's broken loose and you've got the car in the air and supported on a jack stand, you're going to use a 17 millimeter and go ahead and remove the wheel. After the wheel's removed, you're going to want to go ahead and take off the brake caliper and the brake caliper mount as well. Now, I can recall from the first time I did this, well, I have a decent rotor as well, so I have no groove on the rotor, but I was able to take the caliper with the bracket off in one piece. So, if I remember, these are 21 maybe? Yeah, 21 millimeter. After you get the two 21 millimeters loose for the caliper and the caliper mounting bracket, make sure it's securely tied out of the way. Then you can keep moving forward. Next thing you're going to want to do is get this lower control arm loose, or go ahead and finish loosening up the axle nut if you've not done that yet, whichever you need to do. It should already be broken loose, obviously, but at this point you can go ahead and take that on out if you'd like. And next we're going to get down here to the lower control arm, and we're going to take these nuts loose here. I apologize, the light's poor. They're right here. What we got here? 16 millimeter. Little quick tip: before you take the axle bolt all the way out, you're going to want to just loosen it up quite a bit. Give it a few little taps here to just free the axle, so that it's free and will move in and out a little bit for you. And then when you loosen these nuts up, take these nuts loose, just loosen them up, don't take them all the way off, and then separate the lower ball joint from the lower control arm first. That way things don't fly apart catastrophically or anything like that. Now you can see the axle is out, lower control arm separated from the lower ball joint. Now we're going to need to go ahead and remove the rotor. You're going to need a Torx bit. T25 Torx. A lot of T25. Now you're pretty much at the wheel hub bearing now, wheel bearing hub assembly. Got some Torx, excuse me, triple square, some triple square, 12 millimeter triple square, which are 12 points. Right here. You're going to want to go ahead and get those loose to get the bearing on out. As you can see, I've got the wheels turned all the way to the right. It kind of pulls that spindle on out a little bit so you can get to those hub bolts real nice. You get the axle out of the way. No need to take the tie rod loose or anything like that. So there we are. I'm going to go ahead and just finish taking these bolts out. They're already loose, and go ahead and get the bearing out. Now if the bearing's never been replaced before, it's going to be a bear to get out of the spindle. The first one that I took off of here, I had to beat it off with a hammer, and the hub separated from the back of the bearing, the race. This one shouldn't be as bad. I put a little anti-seize on the inside part of the hub bearing assembly before I put this one on. wobble extensions are really handy sometimes. It's tough to do with one hand. I just wanted to show a little action. Just like any other guy trying to get things done. These bearing. I mean, this bearing has only been on here, gosh, maybe 10,000 miles. I mean, it looks twice as bad as the factory bearing that come off this thing. It's just made with poor metal. I can't imagine that the race is any count inside. The bearing must be crap. The seal's already leaking, as you can see there. It's just really a crappy bearing. New bearing assembly. You know, I forgot to show, but it's a good idea to clean the inside of that hub. Spindle, I should say, where the hub's going to sit. Just kind of clean it up a little bit. Knock some of the rust off if there's any. Throw a little penetrating oil on it, wipe it off good. Just to clean things up. And then you can go ahead and get the bearing bolted in. $52 foot-pounds plus a quarter turn. So go ahead and get your 52 first. Go ahead and get 52 on all of them, and then you're going to have to get the breaker bar back out and try your best to get a quarter turn. It's hard to get a quarter turn, but try. 52 pounds plus a quarter turn. You can make sure you have a little grease on the splines, and go ahead and get the axle guided back in place. Get the controls, lower ball joint set into the control arm, and temporarily get those nuts. Lower ball joint nuts torque at 44 foot-pounds. So go ahead and get these all snugged down. Of course, the axle's in place now. New bearings on. And we're starting to get there. We're going to come in at about an hour and 20 minutes on this job. And that's, you know, going at a moderate pace. I mean, not killing myself by any means. So 44 foot-pounds on these. Let's do that next. The bearings in and torqued and extra quarter turn on each hub bolt. I got the axle in and the lower control arms back together with the lower ball joint. Everything's coming together nicely. Next thing we're going to do is put the rotor on. Go ahead and get it secured with its little Torx bolt. Go ahead and get the caliper back on. And for the next step, you're going to want to go ahead and get your first step of torque on your axle bolt. And of course that varies based on the axle bolt that you have. And I've got all three versions here, so I'll be able to show you the difference between each one of the axle bolts. That's coming up next. This guy here doesn't need a lot of torque. I mean, I've just got a little 1/4 inch on it. I mean, it just needs to be snug. Tight, snug. That's about it. I mean, it doesn't take much more than that. It just holds the rotor in place. Wheel goes over top of it. No big deal. Just get her snugged down. And we're going to torque these caliper mounting bracket bolts. 140 foot-pounds is what these guys need. 140 foot-pounds. So dial that torque wrench up and get these babies torqued down to 140 foot-pounds. All right, here we go. 140 foot-pounds. Not as much as you would think, really. Okay, last step here is we're gonna get this axle bolt in. And like I said, there's 3 different types. There's a 12-point non-ribbed, which takes the same torque as the 6-point non-ribbed, but the 12-point ribbed, which might I add is a bear to get loose, takes a different torque. Takes a lighter torque on this one initially, and then like an extra half turn or quarter turn or something, which I'll talk about here in a minute. But this one is what the genuine VW bolt comes with, VW bearing comes with. Non-ribbed. I think the non-ribbed is probably the right choice. That's what it, I mean, this was the original bolt right here, non-ribbed. So I say non-ribbed, go back with a non-ribbed if you can. I think it gives you the more accurate torque, quite frankly. Here we go, 148 foot-pounds for the non-ribbed hex or 12-point non-ribbed, 52 foot-pounds for the ribbed. So after you get your initial 52 for the ribbed, or in this case 148 for the non-ribbed, you're going to do an extra half turn on the non-ribbed, and you do an extra quarter turn on the ribbed. I think the non-ribbed bolt is going to give you a more accurate torque. I really do. That's what was on it from the factory again, so I think that's the way to go. So I have the left front wheel still on the ground. I just have the right side jacked up here. So I'm going to go ahead and get my initial torque. If you have both front wheels on the ground, this thing's just going to spin, so you're going to need an assistant to hold the brakes and get your initial step 1 torque before you put it on the ground, don't you know? So I can't locate my grease pen, so I'm just going to use a Sharpie, and I'm just going to put a mark here, here, and here, just so I kind of have an idea of when I get to a half turn, which will be all the way there. So good luck on that. It's pretty tough. Well, I got it. As you can see, I went a full half turn because I have the non-rib bolt. Guys, that's tight. It's really tight. But if you have a 3/4 breaker bar, a little bit of a cheater, you're going to be able to do it like it's butter. You know, I'm not a huge guy. I weigh about 200 pounds, but I mean, I didn't have to bounce on it or anything. But she's in there, genuine VW bearing, and I'm very optimistic that this one will do a lot better than the Chinese bearing that I took off of here. So that's it. I'm going to go ahead and put the wheel cap back on if I can find it. So done.